So,
Okay.
of course, we'll be recording this. So, Dr. Tom, thank you so much for joining us and accepting this invitation to come and minister to our young people. This is basically the DBF Young Adults leaders, So, this group that we've invited, which is actually about almost 20 of us, 15 to 20, they are like the Sunday school teachers, the high school ministry teachers, our team, leaders, worship team. So of course, not all can attend today, but so that's why we're going to be recording it, and we'll also archive this, and we'll be meeting every once a month. First Saturday of every month, we'll be having a series on different topics that are important and relevant for the young leaders of the church, with the hope and plan that of course there'll be missionaries and teachers of the word in the future, in the long term. So we want to build a solid foundation for them, and that is why we're doing this. So thank you so much for all those who could join us. I'm so glad we can do this. Really excited. And today's topic is how to study the Bible, in simply put, right? How to study the Bible so that we can enjoy it ourselves, benefit from it, and also it'll be useful for our ministries as well. So I want to invite Pius to give us an introduction to Dr. Tom himself. And oh, have we started recording? Yes.
Yes, Pastor.
Great. So
Okay.
Pius, yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Dr. Tom, for joining us today and helping us to learn how to study Bible. So Dr. Tom has done Masters in Theology and PhD from Dallas Theological Seminary, and is also a former principal and lecturer in Adelaide College of Ministries in South Australia. And he has also pastored in churches in USA and Australia. So thank you so much, Dr. Tom, for joining us, and over to you.
Okay, thanks for the introduction and thanks for the invitation to share today. It's actually one of the things that it's probably the thing I enjoy doing the most, is helping people learn how to study the Bible for themselves. It's about the most important skill that we can have in our Christian lives, I think. But I thought maybe, and it looks like there's not a lot of us here live today, but I thought maybe we could, I could get to know you guys a little bit. So if you would do something for me, I'm going to share my screen. But if you would be willing, maybe go around to everybody, give your name, what you do, and what your favorite food is. Can we do that? Maybe Pius, you want to start off, and then you can pick somebody after you're done?
Yeah, sure. So hello, everyone. My name is Pius Alex, and I'm currently working as a software developer, and I'm also serving in youth ministry and in kids ministry right now. And my favorite food would be, I guess, paneer only. Same answer. So yeah, next I would like to give to Stephen. Yeah, over to you, Stephen.
I knew that was coming. Hi guys. Hi Pastor Tom. Hi Pastor Noel. I'm Stephen, and I work as an investigator with an organization, church consultancy basically. And my favorite food is, I don't know, I can maybe categorize it in strictly non-vegetarian. So anything that has flesh. That's my favorite kind of food. And I'll pick Desmond next.
Desmond, are you there?
Yeah, just a moment. I'll turn on my camera. Yeah, hi. Yeah, so those who know me, my name is Desmond. Currently, I'm working in an organization called Genpact. I'm also the team member in the youth ministry role in DBF. And about my favorite food, being a Delhiite, I love momos. Yeah. Okay, so I'll pick Ria.
Hi everyone, I'm Ria. I'm currently in 11th grade, so one more year to finish school. And my favorite food would be Bengali food. I pick Rene.
Hello, everybody. This is Renee, and I am a student, first year college. And my favorite food is anything that mom made tasty that day. Well, okay, who else? I pick Nados.
Do I have to turn my camera on? I just joined.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, I will turn my camera on in a bit. My name is Nardos Lemma. I am a third year political science and international relations student. I'm from Ethiopia originally. What is my favorite food? I like chicken. That's all I know. Butter chicken. No, not butter chicken. Anything but butter chicken.
How about Dora what?
Huh?
How about Dora what?
Oh, yes. And hello. I've taken a hermeneutics with you.
Okay.
See you again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Emmanuel, you want to go next?
Oh, all right, sure. Okay. So my name is Emmanuel. I am the youth pastor, worship pastor here in DBF, but I'm also a teacher. I work in a school, and I love honey and bee larvae. Yeah.
Interesting.
Stephen next.
Stephen is left. Yes, Gilbert, Samuel.
So, hi everyone, I'm Stephen Samuel, and I'm currently working at the same company as Stephen. And what is my favorite food, right? It has to be something non-vegetarian. I think right now it will just be pork, I guess. But yeah, non-vegetarian.
Good choice. Anyone left in the list? I think we've covered everyone for now.
Okay, everybody. Well, I thought I'd give you a few of my favorite foods. And I didn't narrow it down to one because I like so many. But it's not wanting to advance. There we go. I do like Indian food, most Indian foods pretty well. Vietnamese food is also one of my favorites. And so you get these bun bowls here, rice noodles. I like Mexican food. I love pizza, made pizza last night. But I find it interesting that nobody said their favorite food was bread and water. But I wonder, would you come to a feast where that was what was advertised? And we're going to serve bread and water. We want everybody to come out, and we're sure that you'll really, really, really enjoy it. What I want to do a couple things this afternoon in our time. And so one is to learn or reinforce how to study the Bible for ourselves. But I've also picked a particular passage, Proverbs 9, that we're going to look at relevant to young people. And you guys are either young people or involved with working with the young people. And book of Proverbs is probably something I think is a bit underdone in working with young people because it's so relevant to the lives of young people and what's going on with all human beings when they enter life and the decisions that they have to make. So we're going to use Proverbs 9 as the passage that we're going to work on to do Bible study methods this afternoon. I'll put a couple more slides up. The first 9 chapters of Proverbs are really an advertisement for wisdom. And it has this structure, again, Bible study, we'd call this a chiasm. A chiasm goes from one outer level into a center item and then back out to the outer item again with each one paralleling each other. So in 1:10 to 19, after a brief introduction to Proverbs, we have the enticement of sinners. So sinners are calling the young person to come with them and to try to make easy money by oppressing innocent people and robbing and stealing and murdering, things like that. At the end of chapter 9, then, we have the invitation of folly to come to her banquet, which is, we're going to see it is basically that bread and water that we had on the slide there. But inside of the enticement of sinners in chapter 1, we have the call of wisdom in 1:20 through 33. In 9:1-6, we have another call or invitation from wisdom to come to the banquet that she has. And you're going to see it's a much different banquet than the one that Folly is advertising. And then in between those chapters, chapters 2-8, we have an advertisement for wisdom and warning against choosing folly. So that's a bit of an introduction to, or an overview of the first 9 chapters of Proverbs. Then when we get to Proverbs 9 itself, and I'm doing a little bit of observation of structure for you before I turn you loose to do some study yourself. And if you've done the hermeneutics class or the Bible study class with me before, I talk about a process of Bible study. And the first step of Bible study is observation. And I always tell the students to observe 4 things: to observe words, to observe structure, to observe what type of literature you're in, and to observe the atmosphere of the passage. And so what I've done here is I've given you the structure for Proverbs 1-9, and now the structure for Proverbs 9. So we have this same kind of a structure called a chiasm, or an X sort of a shape, where we have, again, the invitation of wisdom in the first 6 verses. We have the invitation of folly in the last 6 verses. And then in the middle, we have 6 verses that compare and contrast the 2 responses that people have to wisdom. And right in the center of that, we have the fear of the Lord. So hopefully that's a little bit of an overview of these chapters of Proverbs. And maybe before I go on, I don't mind interaction. I don't mind people talking, asking questions. That actually I enjoy that. So does anybody have any questions or thoughts? If you want anything clarified about Proverbs from just that brief introduction that we've had already?
Yeah, I had one question. So you spoke about chiasm here, and like, it's the structure that we see. So my question is, how exactly does this structure help us to better understand this picture? I mean,
Yeah, if we can see structure, we can see what's important to the writer. And it helps us to maybe not get lost in all the details. Most of us, when we study anything, whether it's Bible study or any other kind of study, we're a lot better at analyzing details than we are about seeing big picture. And if we can see a big picture structure that we're not imposing on the passage, but we're actually reading it out of the passage, structure is like the writer leaving a trail or leaving clues about what's important to him and what he's trying to do. So if we go back to that screen, maybe I'll go back to the first one. We can see what's important to the writer in these 9 chapters of Proverbs based on the structure that he's given here. In this case, it's probably not the center item, the chapters 2-8. It's probably the 2 calls that are going on in Proverbs. So you've got one call that's going out to young people from folly, and folly is presented as a woman. She's an adulterous woman, so an immoral woman. And then you've got a call going out from wisdom, who is also portrayed as a woman. And she's both of these people are trying to get young people to choose them. And I think this structure, observing that this structure is here, helps to highlight that contrast of the calls that are going out to all people. I'm going to grab my Bible here, because we'll pick up a few verses right at the beginning of Proverbs. I guess I ought to say, does that sort of answer your question, Desmond?
yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, and it's not like we're trying to find chiasms and we're trying to make stuff up that isn't there. Sometimes there's a chiasm, sometimes there's something else. Sometimes there's a repetition of terms that's important. But I want to introduce you to an important character. So we've already learned the important characters of folly and wisdom. There's really, some writers talk about the first 9 chapters of Proverbs being a drama. So we've got this drama as there's this young person who's kind of walking the fence, kind of trying to stay from falling into either side, not really willing to make a decision. Am I going to throw myself into folly? Am I going to embrace wisdom? I want to kind of leave my options open. And that's the naive person or the simple person. So if we look at the introduction to Proverbs, Proverbs 1:1, says, the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to discern the sayings of understanding. So he's saying this is why Proverbs has been written. To receive instruction in wise behavior, righteousness, justice, and equity. And this is the key verse I want to highlight, to give prudence to the naive. There's a character in Proverbs called the naive person or the simple person. And the word in Hebrew, it means something like open. So this is a person who's just kind of open to whatever. And their biggest problem is they're unwilling to make a decision. They want to have it both ways. And opposite the naive is the youth, knowledge and discretion. And these two are often paired up, the naive person and the youth. And the reason why is because everybody starts out life like this. Everybody starts out life naive. We're open to ideas that might be good to us, ideas that might be harmful to us. We lack the ability to see through people and to understand their motives. We kind of look at things on the surface and we say, oh yeah, that sounds good. I'll go for that. And so that's the naive person. And generally that's a young person. Everybody starts out life that way because a young person doesn't have experience with different acts of living. They don't have experience dealing with different kinds of people. And so what they really need is they need prudence, which is kind of this ability to see below the surface. They're shrewd, they understand how life works if you're prudent. They need to learn knowledge, they need discretion or discernment. And that's what Proverbs will do for them. And then it says, a wise man will hear and increase in learning. A man of understanding will acquire wise counsel. So it's not just the simple that can study Proverbs and benefit, but it's also wise people can study Proverbs and become even wiser. Okay, so that's a bit of an introduction to Proverbs. Were there any other questions? We had one from Desmond. Any others? Questions or clarifications? Okay, let me then overview the Bible study process. And for some of you, this will be new, and for some of you, this will be review. But I always teach and use 3 steps for Bible study. So the first step of Bible study is observation. And it answers and asks and answers the question, what does it say? What does my passage say? And this is actually the most important step in Bible study, okay? Now, it may seem like it's not that important because what's really important is the last step where we actually do what the Bible says. But what is important about this first step is that we have to listen to what God actually says. Because too often we come to the Bible, we read something, we say, oh, I know what it's saying. We say, oh, I know how that fits into life. But we've never actually stopped and listened to what God is saying. So observation, what does it say? The second step then, after we've observed what it says, is interpretation. What does it mean? And we're not going to be able to have the time to kind of unpack all of that today about how we interpret things that are difficult to understand. but it's an important second step. And then the third step is application. So what? What difference does it make? So I've observed what is said in this passage. I've tried to understand what does it mean through interpretation. And then I come to the final step of application, which is so what? What difference does it make in my life? Okay. Let's do a little review, okay? I always do this when I teach Bible study methods. 3 steps of Bible study. If we had a final exam, you'd have 6 points right off the bat. Step 1 is what?
Observation.
Observation. We ask and answer the question, what?
What does it say?
What does it say? Okay, great. Second step of Bible study?
Interpretation.
Interpretation. Ask and answer the question.
What does it mean?
Okay, and third step?
Application.
Application. Question.
So what?
Okay, Pius has seen this before. All right, and he must have had a really good teacher because he remembers it. All right, so observation, interpretation, application. Now, what I am going to do next is to have Emmanuel put you into breakout rooms and to do some observing of Proverbs 1-6 and Proverbs 13-8. I'll just share this screen. So maybe you want to, if you have paper or whatever in front of you, an open laptop or something, maybe do 2 columns. What do we observe about the wisdom passage in verses 1-6? And what do we observe about the folly passage in verses 13-18? Okay, and so your assignment is just to observe what does it say. Now let's, maybe before I turn you loose, let's do an example of an observation or 2 from each of those 2 sets of verses. Okay, I'll read the verses and then we'll make a couple observations from verses 1-6. Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn out her 7 pillars. She has prepared her food. She has mixed her wine. She has also set her table. She has sent out her maidens. She calls from the tops of the heights of the city. Whoever is naive, let him turn in here. To him who lacks understanding, she says, come eat of my food and drink of the wine I have mixed. Forsake your folly and live, and proceed in the way of understanding. Now, I'll just give you a couple observations that jump out at me, and then you can find a lot more than I'm going to give you. One thing is that there are a lot of verbs in those 6 verses. There are a lot of verbs, and verbs are what? They're action words. Okay, so wisdom is very active, and some more observations would be to list all of those different verbs. All right. The second passage then, I'll read that one. So verses 13-18. The woman of folly is boisterous. She is naive and knows nothing. And she sits at the doorway of her house on a seat by the high places of the city, calling to those who pass by, who are making their paths straight. Whoever is naive, let him turn in here. And to him who lacks understanding, she says, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But he doesn't know that the dead are there, that her guests are in the depths of Sheol. So maybe an observation we could make here is that compared to Lady Wisdom, Lady Folly doesn't have as many actions. Okay, there's a few verbs that she's the subject of, but I'll let you observe those things. So any questions about your assignment? Okay, I'm going to give you about 15 minutes, okay? That's maybe seems like a long time, but let's see if you can get something like 20, 25 observations of those 2 passages in the next 15 minutes, okay? And then we'll come back and we'll see how you did and what you found. All right? Okay, I don't know if 15 minutes was too long or too short, but I guess we'll find out. I'm guessing that you found a lot of things. So go ahead and share some of your observations. So we were looking at what does it say? First step of Bible study. What does it say?
I'll go first. So something that I think we all picked up on in the study is the clear difference and and in some cases the juxtapositioning of wisdom and folly, right? So for example, in verse 4, something that Stephen pointed out in the group was verse 4 and verse 16, both are the same. It says, "Let all who are simple come in here," right? And and the difference that wisdom goes on to say, "Come eat my food," that is verse 5, "and drink the wine I have mixed. Leave your simple ways and you will walk in the way of understanding." So we figured out how there is an element of transparency within it. Wisdom is transparent. And whereas on the other hand, in folly, it says, that is 16 onwards. Again, it starts with, "Let all who are simple come in here." She says, "To those who lack judgment, stolen water is sweet, food eaten in secret is delicious." So that element of just hiding things, which is of an inherently sinful nature. And also the fact that in verse 6, wisdom says, "Leave your simple ways and you will live, walk in the way of understanding." That is, it gives us advice on how to make our life better. But folly doesn't.
Great. Okay, great. Thanks. Some really good observations there. Anybody else?
Yeah. So one observation is also that that Lady Wisdom is hardworking because she has built a house. She has sent her maidens out. She has prepared a table. Whereas on the other hand, we see that Lady Folly is saying that stolen water is sweet and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. So she's not hardworking. She's just sitting on the doorpost. So this is one thing. And observation is one of the observations that what are the 7 pillars? What exactly does 7 pillars mean in the first verse? And
yeah, so the observation would be there's a house with 7 pillars, and to go the next step would be to interpret it. And the question is a really good question. It's really good to pepper the passage with questions. So in this case, okay, what's the significance of having a 7-pillared house? And we're not really told in the passage, so we'd have to probably go somewhere else to find the answer for that. But for now, we just observed that it sounds like it's a pretty nice house. And one observation I like that you said there is wisdom seems to be very industrious. She's doing so, she's built, she's hewn, she's prepared, she's mixed, she's set out. So she's really active. And the only thing that Folly does is she sits on her butt and she gives a speech. Okay, so there's a real difference there between the 2 women.
Yeah, one more contrast that we see is very in first 6 verses. It's very inviting. Talking about the environment, it's very inviting, but at the same time, 13 to 18, it's more of a luring thing. And still inviting, but in a negative sense.
Yeah. So she's kind of she's appealing. She's not really appealing to the young person's best nature, is she? She says stolen water is stolen bread. Stolen water is sweet. Bread eaten in secret is pleasant. And sounds good, but then you boil it down to what's in the meal. Bread and water. Pretty basic. And so she's not really advertising the feast. She's advertising the secretive, illicit nature of it. Okay, whereas if we were to look at the woman's feast, there's food, mixed wine, food again, wine again, twice. So I guess that's a repetition there. Anything else? What else have you seen? Those are great observations.
In verse 3, we see that Lady Wisdom sends out her maids. Whereas Lady Folly doesn't have anybody that she sends out.
Okay. This wisdom seems to be sort of elegant, maybe well-to-do. She's got people working for her, and Folly's just kind of sitting there calling out to people. Yep, good.
Multiple verses, it talks about ways. So there is a simple way and there is a straight way. It talks about in verse 15.
Okay, so we've got one of the things in wisdom literature and Proverbs is there's certain wisdom terms. So if we're going to observe the type of literature, wisdom is its own particular type of literature. And it's got language like way, path, things like that. I'm trying to pick all of those out. So you have 6, you have the way of understanding. You have 15, as you've said, paths. What else? Maybe that's all in these verses. But those are real wisdom terms. Wisdom literature and Proverbs is also poetry. So there's going to be a lot of imagery and there's going to be parallelism is something to look for. Okay, good. Any other observations? You're doing well.
Just to conclude with what others have said, so the structure is, I would say, one is of contrast and repetition and comparison. Repetition,
Okay.
as Stephen said, that was 4 and 16 are being exactly being repeated same. Then contrast, how we see that that how the two ladies are doing two different things, and comparison also, as we can see the comparison between both. That one is slaughtering meat and preparing wine, whereas on the other hand, it's just bread and water. And type of literature is, I'm not sure. I guess it's poetic, like me and like we were discussing. It looks little poetic.
What is? Sorry, what is poetic?
Type of literature looks little poetic.
Yep, you're right. So like for an example of the way that Hebrew poetry works in verse 17, stolen water is sweet. And then he's going to say something very similar in the second half. Bread eaten in secret is pleasant. So stolen water. So we got bread, water, stolen, secret, sweet, pleasant. So he's kind of rhyming thoughts. The words don't rhyme, like maybe English poems might rhyme, but the thoughts rhyme. Okay, we've got comparison, we've got contrast, really good things to observe in this passage. So the earlier question about, like the chiasm, what does that do and how does that help you? Again, seeing comparison and contrast, it helps us to see what the writer is up to, what's important to it. He wants us to see very clearly that to every human being, and he uses the word, both of them in their speeches, verse 4, whoever is naive, to him who lacks understanding. Verse 16, whoever is naive, him who lacks understanding. So it's that young person who hasn't made a decision which direction they're going to go in life yet. This is a really, really important deal for that person who is everybody at one point in their life. Okay, any other things you want to observe? You guys have done great so far. Okay, there's probably a lot more things that we could see, probably some other things that you saw, but let's put this back up. So we could chart these, or we could put our observations side by side, which maybe helps us see things. So wisdom, she's built her house, she's hewn out her 7 pillars, and again, this would be a very unusual house in the land of Israel. It would be a much more elaborate house, a more expensive house. She's prepared her food, mixed her wine, set her table, sent out her maids. So those are all the things she's done. The woman of folly is boisterous. So boisterous would be something kind of like loud and active. But at the same time, she's naive. Not only is she calling out to naive people, She herself, she's naive. She knows nothing. She doesn't know anything about life. But she's calling out to other people to join her. She sits at the doorway of her house on a seat by the high places of the city. And then we could compare their speeches if we want. Wisdom calls, whoever is naive, let him turn in here. To him who lacks understanding, come, eat of my food, drink of the wine I've mixed. Forsake your folly. And what's going to be the outcome if you forsake folly? You're going to live and proceed in the way of understanding. Folly, however, calls to those who pass by, who are making their paths straight. Whoever is naive, let him turn in here. And to him who lacks understanding, she says, water is sweet and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. So Proverbs tells us, and the Lady Wisdom tells us in her speech, that the outcome of coming to her feast is going to be life. What's the outcome for those who come to folly's feast? She doesn't include it in her speech, but the writer of Proverbs gives it to us. What is that outcome?
Death.
Death. Yeah. So the young man, see, this is the thing the young person can't see. They just see on the surface. And if a person progresses from being simple or naive to being a fool, which is kind of the progression, if you don't choose wisdom, you end up choosing folly. You head down this road of being a fool. A fool disconnects actions and consequences, or decisions and consequences. And that's something that a young person can't do because they haven't experienced life as much. But wisdom wants us to see that if I choose this particular direction or make this decision, this is what the consequences are going to be. Folly kind of ignores that. And folly doesn't want the young person, the naive person, to think about the future, to think about the consequences. And so this is the big drama or the big struggle that's going on in Proverbs 1 through 9. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts or questions based upon this quick look at these two sets of verses. Okay, something that we can do, and I don't know if people have Concordance available to them, probably not so much. Concordance is a big book that lists every occurrence of every word that's used in the Bible. And so you can see themes and topics. You can compare scripture to scripture. You can buy computer programs that will help you do that in Bible study. Those are kind of expensive. But there's some free things that you can use as well. So eSword is a program and an app that you can get for free. Blue Letter Bible, again, it's a website and an app. There's some other ones that you can use as well. And if you looked up the word naive or simple and traced it through Proverbs, you'd find some verses. So I don't know if I can do the whiteboard. Can I do the whiteboard myself, or do I have to have you do that? And then
I think you can do it. You're an admin. You're a co-host, so I think you can.
Okay. Let's see, where do I do that? I'm not sure where to find the.
Okay, do share screen.
Yep.
And some windows will open. What do you have whiteboard?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay. So let me give you some verses. Whoops. I want text. Clear it. Okay, I'll do the text. So let me give you some verses that all use this word naive or simpleton. So we've got 1:4, we've got 122, 132, 7:7, 8:5, 9, 4, 6, and 16. We've got 14, 15, and 18. We've got 19, 25, 21, 11, 22, 3, and 27, 12. So if we wanted to study this person as a theme in Proverbs, these are the verses where this person is mentioned. And maybe we'll do these together. We won't break up, but let's read each of these verses together. So somebody start us off by reading Proverbs 1:4. I guess we won't read that one. I already read it. So Proverbs is designed to give prudence to the naive, to the young person that doesn't know anything, to the youth, knowledge and discretion. Okay, somebody read 122 for us.
I'll go. That mine is NKJV. I hope that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Proverbs 1:22. How long, you simple ones, will love simplicity? For scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge.
Okay, so this is the first call of wisdom in chapter 1. And so it's very similar to what she's doing in chapter 9. She's trying to get young people to listen to her and to accept her and embrace her. So he talks about naive people loving naivete, or simple people loving simplicity. Again, not wanting to make a decision. And then she talks about scoffers, delight in scoffing, or scorners, I think was the other version. This is the worst person you can be in Proverbs. There's basically no hope for you if you become a scoffer, according to Proverbs. And then fools hate knowledge. So it's not a question for these second two people, the scoffer and the fool, that they're just kind of putting off making a decision. They have made the decision and they hate wisdom. They don't want wisdom. But the simple person, still there's an opening there. Verse 32, someone read that.
For the waywardness of the simple will kill them, and the complacency of fools will destroy them.
Okay, so the naive or the simple person, what's going to bring them undone or destroy them is the fact that they're not making a decision. They're just kind of wandering along, experiencing life. And I think back on my life, and God was so gracious to me. I didn't know anything about this drama that was going on in Proverbs, but I was right in the middle of it, faced with the choice between wisdom and folly, but not really seeing that there was a choice. Just kind of doing the next thing and doing the next thing and doing the next thing. And Proverbs says that's waywardness that's going to destroy that person. 7:7, someone read that.
And I have seen among the simple, I have perceived among the youths, a young man lacking sense.
Okay, so the writer of Proverbs is describing what he saw when he looked out his window one night. There's this naive or simple person, and it's parallel to youths. So young people are in this category because they just haven't experienced life, not because they're stupid or anything. It says the young man lacked sense, and the phrase lacking sense is literally they lack heart. So that there's something missing on the inside. They don't have a well-developed heart because that's not something that they think is important, and so they haven't developed it. And if you go on in this story, he ends up, he goes out at night, and he just kind of wanders by this certain woman's house because she's a very attractive woman, but the reality is she's falling. And he ends up getting into a sexual relationship with this woman. And very similar to what we saw in Proverbs 9, Proverbs 7:23 says, 22, suddenly he follows her as an ox goes to the slaughter, as one in fetters or chains to the discipline of a fool, until an arrow pierces through his liver, as a bird hastens to the snare, so he does not know that it will cost him his life. So this naive person hasn't made a choice. They just kind of, yeah, that looks good, makes this decision, and it's going to destroy him. We've looked at two of the ones in chapter 9, maybe 8:5. We'll look at that one. Someone read that for us.
You who are simple gain prudence. You who are foolish gain understanding.
Okay, this is the third call of wisdom in Proverbs chapters 1 to 9. She's calling out to the same kind of person. Maybe we won't read them all, but you could look at those later if you wanted. But this is the way that you would do a kind of a topic study. If you could get a hold of a concordance or some kind of an app, you could trace this idea through the book of Proverbs and learn more about this person. So the big drama going on in Proverbs is, who is the young person going to follow? Who is the young person going to embrace? Are they going to embrace this woman who looks really good? She looks really hot, but there's no substance there. And it's going to be the path that sets this person on the road of foolishness and death. Or is he going to choose this probably more elegant older woman named Wisdom, who maybe isn't as physically attractive, but has a great life and great stuff to offer the young man? Which one is he going to choose to be his spouse? And it's put in the form of a young man rather than a young woman. It's just the way they would have written it in that time. But it's applicable to both young men and young women. Who are we going to choose? Who are we going to marry? Is it going to be wisdom, or is it going to be fun? So the question then becomes, if that's what's being offered, why do so many people choose this? I mean, when everybody shared their favorite food, nobody said bread and water is my favorite thing. Whoever said veg food, maybe that was the closest. But bread and water is really what she's offering in terms of life and the experience of life and all of the good things that God wants to give us in life. Why are so many people choosing such a poor meal instead of something like this? America, we have Thanksgiving. That's a Thanksgiving day. Really good food. Well, we've got about 20 minutes left. And I think it's important that we do a little bit of thinking through application. And I want to put you into your rooms for probably about half of that time. So for 10 minutes, what should we do with this passage that we've looked at, both for ourselves as individuals and as people who are working with young people, encouraging young people? What would be start with some general sorts of applications or principles of these verses, and then what might be some specific applications, some specific things I'm going to go away from and say, this is what I'm going to do or think or believe as a result of studying this passage today, okay? So again, think about that for two groups. Think about that personally, and then think about that in terms of the young people that you're dealing with. Any questions on the assignment? Okay, so I'll give you 10 minutes, come back about 4:21, 4:20. Okay, I don't know how you did with that, but let's see what you came up with. Things either of a general nature of an application or things of a more specific nature. What do I do with this individually? What do we do with this with the young people that we're working with? Someone start us off.
So one very basic application that we thought of was hard work, because we saw that Lady Wisdom, she's got her table, she's worked hard, and then she's inviting people. Whereas Lady Polly isn't doing anything. She's just sitting out there and she's luring people. So hard work is a practical application of this passage in one way.
Yeah, good. There's actually, if you go into chapter 2, which is right after her call, wisdom's first call, it says that if you search for wisdom, if you cry out for her, if you call, if you dig, then you will find wisdom and you will gain the knowledge of the Lord. And one of the things in the textbook we use in hermeneutics class for MA ABTS is Howard Hendricks' Living by the Book. And he says in there, God's word does not yield its fruit to the lazy. And so God loves to make people wise, and he loves to pour out his banquet on people, but it does take work. But that'd be a real good start toward an application. What else?
Yeah, one more application came up with is being more of, as you said, hindsight, right? So on the surface, I think the folly woman, she looks very attractive, but what she is giving is like stolen water and bread, and on the other hand, the wisdom, she has this wine that she made. So yeah, this contrast that we see. So we need to take the deeper sense of things, not just on the surface.
Good.
Like have hindsight.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. There's another proverb, I don't remember the address, but it says, like a ring of gold in a swine's snout, so is a beautiful woman who lacks heart. Okay, so you've got this, you look at this woman and you think, wow, she's beautiful. She's got everything I want. And the writer of Proverbs says that's like a tiny little gold ring attached to a pig. Okay, so if we had wisdom, we'd be able to see the reality of the situation every time. And that's what the simple person and the fool can't do, is they just see the thing right in front of them and they don't see where it leads. They don't see what it really is. Good. Any other thoughts?
Just one application I could relate to it was that, that how we do things at church, or maybe our youth group or maybe Sunday schools kind of thing, that, that first we prepare things, we prepare sermon, we prepare for games, worship, and, like how every time we just come, we just, set the chairs and everything. And so it's like, we have to put hard work, we have to prepare for that to spread wisdom. So that's one thing I could relate. It's not kind of application, but yeah, just one thing I could relate with.
Okay, yeah, and I think that is application too, that, if you're doing youth work, are you setting a good table with nutritious food in front of these young people, or are you just giving them what they think they want? So that's very legitimate. I can't. The way that I felt when I started to understand this war that was going on around me, I never knew this was even a thing when I was a young person, and God was just so gracious to me and kind to me that He, in a span of about 9 months, just turned my life around. And I chose wisdom without even knowing that that's what I was doing. But I think one thing we need to do with people, young people, is to let them know that there's a battle going on. If somebody is out for their soul, somebody who isn't good and who isn't wise and who isn't going to give them life is trying to get them to choose them. And so maybe that's a bit of an application as well, is to help young people see that they're in a battle, whether they feel it or see it, it's real. Any other thoughts?
I have something to add. So my personal battlefield as such. I suppose like I work, so it's a corporate setting, and something that we were discussing in our small group also was that when as the older you get, you become less impressionable, right? So like whatever you picked up on your youth, that kind of sticks with you. So so for me personally, that I think this really affected me is when you look at Lady Wisdom, she has this element of sincerity for her, right? She is describing what she has. She describes the wine, she describes the food. On the other hand, Folly doesn't, right? And I genuinely think that's something that personally affected me, because like I can see my colleagues, if I'm not sincere with them when I'm sharing anything, or just because we act as the beacon of light in dark places, and if there is no element of sincerity to us in itself, there's no way we can impact other people. So that's something that I really picked up from this.
Great, thanks for that. Maybe one more before we close it off.
Yeah. So I had one application. I don't know if I'm correct here. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think this can be very much relevant in, I think, evangelism. I think the two contrasts that we see here is invitation and luring. And many times we stick to luring it at the time of evangelism, with great music and great show. But at the end, we need to understand that this is not what's going to bring the actually chosen people. The gospel is what's going to bring people to Christianity. So I think, yeah, that can be used there.
Great, thanks.
Be more inviting and not luring.
Thanks. And and along with that, the gospel is God's ultimate wisdom. And that choice that we make just takes us in such different end results. It's not just about heaven and hell, although that's a reality, but it's also, there's some Proverbs in chapter 4, in part of that call of wisdom and the advertisement for wisdom. It says that when you're on the, when you're on the path of wisdom, the path gets brighter and brighter and brighter. It gets smoother and smoother. You can see where you're going, and you're heading toward light. You're heading toward heaven. Whereas if you're on folly, the road gets harder and darker the farther that you go. And so, the sooner that you can get on that path of wisdom, which is ultimately the path of the gospel, the better you're going to be. Thanks for participating. I guess we're out of time, but I'll pass it back to Emmanuel.
Well, thank you so much, Doctor. That was very interesting. Not only a good technique, but I literally learned stuff today, I think.
Great.
So yeah, I think that's very important. And you're not a beautiful woman, but you're definitely a handsome man.
No, I'm not a beautiful woman. Don't choose me for that reason.
Yeah, you won us over. So thank you so much, Doctor. And I hope everybody would be able to apply this method and grow to use it more often. And so thank you so much for joining, guys. And as mentioned, we'll do this once a month. We'll have different topics for the whole year, and hopefully you'll be well equipped to do the work that you need to do, right? So Pius, yes, thank you for the recording. We'll be uploading it and we'll be checking it out with everybody else later. All right, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Doctor. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a nice day.